We are back here on the main stage of Sweden Game Conference 2021. For a final session, we're going to have a fireside chat here with these two amazing people from Wishfully. We're going to talk about this beautiful game, Planet of Lana. So right here beside me, we have Adam Stjärnljus, and we have Dan Faxe over here as well. And I'm going to let you introduce yourselves a little bit. Please, what do you do, and what's your background?
Yeah, so... Yeah, I'm the creative director and co-founder at Wishfully, but I also, as many indie game developers I have a lot of different hats. So I do a little bit of everything as well. I draw some, I do some game design and producing and yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Directing.
Yeah, and directing, yeah, of course. So yeah, that's me. And my background, we come from a little bit of a similar background, but please introduce yourself first, and we can go into that later, maybe.
Yeah, I work as a technical animator on this project. I'm a co-founder as well, and a game designer. And right now I'm mostly working with puzzle design at this stage of the game.
Yeah, and we have known each other since we were 12 years old, basically, working together on many different things. And we also worked in film and animation for a long time before heading into the game industry. And we actually made some games together as well when we were teenagers, Flash games and Games Factory games and Game Maker games.
Games Factory?
Yeah.
I used to...
Old school.
I know that program.
Yeah.
I used to use it.
They didn't reach a wider audience. They were quite small and never finished.
The games that you made?
Yeah, together.
But it's a good start, right? You need to start somewhere.
Yeah, and over the years we've tried different game projects actually together as well. But then, before doing this.
Cool. So you've known each other for a really long time. I've rarely heard such a long friendship that's keep blossoming into a game company. That's really cool to hear. So just to kick this off, tell us in your words about this game, Planet of Lana, that we just saw the trailer for.
So Planet of Lana is a cinematic puzzle adventure game where you play as this young girl called Lana. She's an 11-year-old girl living on this planet far, far away. And when the game starts, she's living a peaceful life in a fishing village. When this robot army comes and invades the planet and basically takes all the people in the village away, and as well her only family, which is her big sister as well. So she's left all alone all of a sudden and has basically no other option than to go into the wilderness and try to find her big sister. And quite early on she meets this cute little fantasy creature called Mooey. And they become friends, and together they go out on this epic adventure through the planet of Novo.
I mean, that little creature is so cute.
Yeah. And gameplay-wise, maybe you could...
a lot of the game is based around that companionship between Lana and this cat-like Mooey. So Mooey, the small creature, she can do stuff that Lana can't do. She can get down in small spaces and bite off ropes and stuff. But for example, she's also afraid of water, whereas Lana can swim in water and get around. So they have to kind of help each other out to be able to advance in the game together. Yeah,
and it's kind of we have platforming, and then we have puzzling. That's a big part, and then stealth elements. So that's basically what the foundations of the core loop is.
But it's still a single-player game, so you sort of control both the little...
Yeah, and you don't switch characters, so you control Lana at all times, and it's a single-player game, as you say. And then you give commands to Mooey, you can think of her kind of like a dog, so you can tell her to stay and tell her to follow you, and also tell her to do things. And she also has some special abilities that we can't go into right now. Yeah.
Does she always do what she's supposed to do?
No comment.
No, exactly. Almost all the time.
But that's cool, right? Having that sort of relationship with this.
Yeah, and we're really focusing on trying to get Mooey to feel like a living, real creature. That you go on this journey, so real that bond that you can have with a dog in real life. So that's what we're going for as well.
Cool. So where did this all start? Where was the idea born for this game?
In his head.
Yeah, so the game started basically with I really wanted to make a game basically, and it started with one image that I drew about, which is the same image that's our main key art basically, with Lana and Mui. And it is like it is very inspired by Studio Ghibli, which I love. So the core idea has been there from the beginning. It was just this image, and then I worked on the game for a year by myself, like in just weekends and late evenings, before we started the studio. And then we were quite a lot of people that formed the studio together back in 2018. And it was funny because during that year when I worked on the game by myself, I tried to pitch the game to Don to get him aboard, but you didn't think it was such a...
Yeah, and it was also a bit different back then.
Yeah.
Like all the animations were like cell animated, and I come from a background of 3D character animation, so I didn't really see my part of it there as well, like what I could contribute with. And then it kind of morphed during that time. So once we went over and animated the characters in 3D, for example, I had more of a place to do stuff in the game as well. And then it kind of grew from there as well into other areas, like game design and puzzle design, which wasn't originally what I was doing in the game.
Yeah, we realized that your brain was perfect to come up with strange puzzles. So it actually started as a quite retro-inspired platformer, very similar to games that I grew up with, such as Another World and Oddworld and Flashback. So it was like frame-by-frame drawn animations for the main character. And it was this like grid system that they had in those old games, where you take one step and you go one grid forward.
Right.
And I thought, coming from an animation background, that, okay, because first I thought that I would do this game by myself with a programmer, basically. So I thought that was also like a scope that I could handle. So I did it the same way that they did like the old Prince of Persia games, that I filmed my brother's daughter, like when she was jumping and running, and then I used that for like kind of painting in each frame. But it was actually not so good for this game, because the idea was still to make like a cinematic, epic adventure with a lot of immersion. And we worked with having the game like that for the first half year. And when we pitched it to publishers, they were like, okay, this looks great. I mean, it's a great idea, but it's totally unrealistic. You won't be able to do this, and it doesn't feel good to control the character, because it was like sluggish and not so responsive. So that's why we decided to do it in 3D. So it's this like keeping that hand-painted style, but still having the so it's 2.5D, so you still have like you get much more immersion, like when you can feel that you're in the world, and also it enables like animation and to have the controls
to be much more fluid with the animations and more responsive at the same time. So I think it was a wise decision.
Yeah. And then you wanted to jump on board at last, which was very good. And a lot of other people jumped aboard as well, and so many talented people that contributed and made it such a much better game than it would have ever been if it continued like with that original idea. So it's really been formed over the years.
Yeah, but tell us about that. Like, what does the team look like? Like, what roles do you have? How many people are you?
Yeah, so we're 12 employees right now, but we're about 17 people actively working on the game with freelancers and so on. But yeah, we're based in Gothenburg, and we're a small team, and we have very good. I think everyone on the team is so talented, and it's such an inspiring time now as well, since we're in middle of production. It's just so much content coming out.
We have, should be noted that we're kind of like a weird mix of people. A lot of us come from film and animation background. whereas other people are very experienced game developers. So we're kind of like mixed in that. We take a lot from both worlds. So to say, me and Adam, we have been working with film and animation for a long time before going into games. So I think everyone is bringing these different aspects to it.
Yeah, and we were used to doing like shorter commercial animation projects, which I think
trying a lot of different styles, graphical styles. How can we achieve this look that we have on just this still image?
Right.
I think that helped in order to bring this into 3D and achieve the look that are still there from your early concept designs, where it's just a still drawing, and then kind of like bringing that to life to make you feel like you're inside of this world.
Yeah, but it took a long time to really find the final visual style as you see in this trailer, because we had the luxury to have like quite a long pre-production of over 2 years. So while
working on other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. While working with just our free time. But the good thing about that, or early on, we took the decision that we shouldn't show too much from the game. Like we wanted quite that, like the old school way of not showing too much until it's polished, kind of thing. And that was a really good decision for our game, not for every game, of course, but for our game it was good because then we could try a lot of stuff and fail and then redo it. And I think and there's so many people that's contributed to the final style. It's our level designer and the programmers like creating like this dynamic wind system that makes it come alive, and yeah, a lot of different people that makes it into the final style. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Ghibli, for example, as like an inspiration, but like, where does that the art style come from? Like, do you have other inspirations? Like, what made you go with this look?
I mean, it was very, very much Studio Ghibli, and especially like the film Spirited Away. I really I mean, in some movies you just have that, like it's the right day and you're in the right mood, and I just saw it by myself the first time, and it was just like a very special experience. So it's very much that tonality, and I just love the vibe that they have, or he have in a lot of his film, Miyazaki. Just that feeling of like being out in a field, like when the wind blows through the grass, and so it's very Studio Ghibli inspired, I would say, but then again also very inspired from like the commercial animation scene as well, which we were a part of, where there's a lot of creative people, and so it has some like kind of minimalism to it as well, and like Breath of the Wild, for example, Zelda games, and like those also big inspiration, I would say, to the art style.
Yeah, I think you can kind of see that in a palette, you know, with the soft blues and greens, something coming together. It's really cool, and I like the way that like you have the more angular robot-like creatures as well, like as a contrast to that. Like when you see it in trailer, it feels like that's not natural. It's not supposed to be there. Like I think you create a really nice dissonance with that kind of art choice, I suppose. But continuing on inspirations, what are the puzzle inspirations? Like what's the inspiration for the gameplay of the game?
I think a big inspiration is games like Limbo and Inside in terms of the platformer puzzle things, but also personally I think I have a lot of inspirations from games like Zelda, Nintendo games in a big way. And then it's just connecting with the story that we have. We have a dedicated guy writing the story for the game, so a lot of inspiration for the puzzles comes from that everything has to fit in to the story as well. We can't just like throw random puzzles at the player. So everything has to make sense from all different parts of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, like to hear that the narrative design and game design sort of come together. What does that process look like when you sort of determine what that's going to be?
The story or the puzzles, or
I suppose you have the story for the game, and then like how do you communicate together to come up with the right puzzles for the right like story beat?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of it comes from the environments that the player are in. and if it's gonna feel like a hostile environment, maybe there's more danger in it, and maybe it's more of a part in the game where it's more calm and you have more time and can feel a bit cozy as well. And then it's just playing around. I get inspirations for the puzzles from different ways. It can be from the story, it can be from just coming up with a game mechanic, or like a creature that exists in this world that behaves in a certain way, that the player has to learn how it behaves, how it can use it to solve the puzzle. So there's a lot of different things inspiring the puzzle design, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun also when you have a character and you kind of look at it, and it might be for something that you thought first, but then you kind of like when it's finished or like more fleshed out, maybe you get like an idea of some weird stuff, and it's a lot of fun with the planet we have, like it's being this weird world with a lot of weird creatures. Just it's a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, where anything, it could be like a plant that is kind of like can be almost living thing, you know, that can be used in different ways. So yeah, and then we have a game design group where we collaborate. Usually I have maybe a thumbnail sketch or something, and then I draw on paper or digitally, and explore different puzzle ideas, and then going through all the steps during the puzzle to make it work logically. And then I usually present it to the game design group and get a lot of good feedback there. Maybe it's all just working in my head, so we have to constantly give each other, like, make it work for everyone. And then we're doing it kind of special, I think, maybe. We're kind of like building a separate game where we're just prototyping all the puzzles in the game, where everything else is stripped away, and it's not even like game assets, where it's like totally different placeholder assets and everything, where we can test all the puzzles by themselves before we actually build them in the real game, so to say.
Yeah, and without any programmers having to put a lot of time.
Yeah. So, and we can play test it in this really pure, clean environment, basically, and see what the problems for the puzzles are, without being distracted by all the beautiful.
Yeah, because the puzzles are so hard. I mean, so hard to make good puzzles, because I mean it all ties in. It's all a puzzle in itself, like, because everything builds on top of the other puzzle to have like a good progression.
Yeah,
and
it's more like a house of cards built by puzzle pieces. So if you pull one off, it can all like collapse on the whole thing. Pretty much.
And then I think it's quite special, because if you have a game that's hard in the sense, for example, like a game like Hollow Knight or something like that, like that's quite hard, but it feels fair, like in the sense that, okay, I understand that I need to be more skillful with my fingers and timing and stuff like that. But in a puzzle, it's like, it's very hard to find that balance, because people are also very different in their ability to solve logical puzzles. I mean, it's just the way it is. So finding that balance of it being like
challenging
in a good
but
way. Fun, because if you make it too easy, it's not fun, because you just feel that it's just.
You don't want to get frustrated, not knowing what to do, and just be totally stuck in a game. So just finding that sweet spot, I think it's a big challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of testing is
a lot of testing
necessary.
And we can test the whole, like all the puzzles in all of the game with this separate prototype in a manageable time span as well. So that's a big pro, I think, doing it that way.
So do you do play testing with external players as well to figure out?
Yeah, for sure. So first, usually we play test it internally, and then maybe we tweak it until we're pretty satisfied, and then we do external testing with this prototype as well. Yeah.
But it's just like looking back at the puzzles we made in the beginning. They were so bad, like when you look at them now, because it's just,
but it was also like figuring out the core mechanics more than maybe the puzzles, because then later, like, the story has evolved a lot, and so now all the puzzles are kind of have its place more Before it was maybe like, okay, we can try doing this and this, but they were not connected into the big picture. Whereas now we try to, everything has to follow the storyline as well.
But it's also the thing of like, I think it's, you just have to do a lot of puzzles to get good at it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to fail a lot, and because it's just impossible like you can't come up with a puzzle on paper and prototype it, and then you realize there's so many times like when you don't, it's so hard to like predict what the players will do or how they will react to something and what they will figure out. And it's a lot about tricking people to feeling smart as well. Like yeah, but it is. But that to get that feeling of like the feeling of reward when you.
Yeah, but it's actually really fun to design the puzzles, and then you play test it with external people, and they play it in a completely different way. And we might even have internally play tested it, and we're like, okay, this works pretty good. And then there comes a player from the outside and just doing something completely random. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
But it's also good to like then go with that. We've done that a lot of times also. Like if they do it in a way that we never figured they would do, but then we'll just, okay, maybe we should just let the players do that because they think that's fun.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're allowed to do that now.
Yeah.
But that's why, the power of playtesting as well, right? Like actually, realizing how players will actually interact with your game, and and it's so rewarding as well to see them be playful in this thing you made. And you think you made something, and they can experience something completely different and get something else away from your game, maybe than you expected, which can be really powerful and really cool, I think. But we're talking kind of high level now, but can you give us an actual example of what a puzzle might be in the game?
I'm not sure. Do we want to? I mean, we haven't.
But I mean, it's really based around like if you think of Inside, for example, it's a big inspiration for us. I think they have so good puzzle design. But I mean, we have the element of two characters, like one character that can have. There's a lot of it's a lot of possible. Like you have to place Lana in somewhere and Mui somewhere. They'll have to sync, like, or you can use one as bait for a weird creature or something like that. So it's a lot to figure out. Also, like you could meet a strange creature, and how does that react to Lana or Mui, and how can you use that to get past that puzzle. But yeah, I don't think we want to go into like a specific example right now. But yeah.
All right. So what are the biggest challenges been while working on this game?
So many challenges.
No, but it's hard to pick something. I think. I mean, a big challenge was it was quite a hard sell to get funding, I would say. Since we were a new team, like making a very, very ambitious game for an indie game, so it has like quite a big. We need quite a big budget to make it, like because to make a game like this work, I think you need to have like a very high level of polish on everything. Like we have a very high level of like animations, like the sound, the music, like when you create this cinematic immersive experience, and that takes people, and I mean, and the puzzles needs to be good, and it needs to have a really good like technical foundation.
But there was a lot of work getting the art to like translating your concepts into 3D, right?
Yeah,
that was a long process of getting it exactly how we wanted it.
Yeah,
doing it like we showed it a little bit out here in our booth.
Yeah,
some behind the scenes stuff where we're building it in layers, and
yeah, and it's it was really a process of finding that style, because if we look back on like earlier builds, it looked kind of good, but not at all at that polish level that we have now, and that's so many things that has allowed us to do that, as I went into earlier also. But it's a lot of experimentation. But otherwise, I think, yeah.
I think for me, like for the puzzles, it's that balance, like between challenging and not frustrating, but not too easy either. Just finding that sweet spot for the puzzles is a big challenge. That's really fun as well, but takes a lot of playtesting, I think, and just bouncing around ideas and making it work, like making the ideas communicate in a good way.
And I think that the tricky thing with this genre, like if you think about like you want to make a game, you think like okay, a side-scrolling puzzle platformer. I mean, theoretically, it could be quite easy type of game to make compared to like a multiplayer game or an open world game or 3D game or whatever. But I mean, we're really trying to make a really polished game with like fun gameplay, good puzzles, and like a really epic adventure and it's just it's so much harder than I could have ever thought in the beginning to make all those parts work, and it took so much more resources than I thought in the beginning as well. So that was definitely a challenge of like scrapping things and starting over and just realizing, okay, this is totally wrong scope for this,
and asking for more money.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very crowded genre. There are a lot of puzzle platformers out there as well, but there's not that many that's become big and like a viable like investment for publishers maybe.
Right. But let's talk about that topic. We already obviously talked a little bit yesterday, but let's go back to the topic of finding a publisher, because you're working with Thunderful.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the challenge of finding a publisher and then actually, starting to collaborate with Thunderful.
Yeah, as I touched on, it's that sell that to make this game good, all parts need to be good, and you can't just say that I promise it's going to be really good. you have to show it somehow. So that's why we did a vertical slice demo to prove that we could do it, and that took a long time.
Also,
to do
since
almost
we were
2
doing
years.
it on the side, while working with other things, like we have a film production company together that we were working with as well during that time, and
so everyone had like other jobs as well, and then like so that's why it also took a lot of time to do it. And then when we had that, the pandemic hit as well. So and then everyone like was scared for a few months maybe.
I think for the puzzle design, it was maybe positive, the pandemic. Because I was locked up in Madrid and I didn't have anything else to do. So I was like, instead, just to not get crazy, I was just working on the puzzles all day.
Yeah, and then
no distractions.
But then we signed with Xbox first, and that, as we talked about yesterday as well, that really got us a stamp of approval, kind of, that they believed in us and in the game, and that kind of gave us the final push to be able to get funding, I believe. Yeah,
that's really cool. How has the collaboration been so far?
It's been excellent. I mean, we really like working with Thunderful, and it's very nice to have the publisher in your town where you live, because I mean, you hear also these like horror stories of publishers as well. So it's just nice to have someone local, I think, instead of having someone on the other side of the world.
It feels like they really trust us as well with the vision that we have. Like they let us do our thing, basically. Yeah,
definitely, and it's a very good. We have very good communication and a very good relationship with them, and I think that's something we felt very early on with them, which I think is really important, that you can be open and have like a good, not be scared to talk about like problems in the production and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been great.
Cool, good to hear.
Yeah.
So you've worked with animation, like with films before. What is it that appeals to you about making games? Why did you choose to do that?
For me, it was really, I've been working with the creative stuff all my life, basically. But
you always wanted to make games.
Yeah, I always wanted to make games.
You're such a hardcore gamer.
Yeah. No, but I started like modding, like doing Quake levels and stuff like that when I was a kid, and just loved modding stuff and doing small games early on. And then I just kind of stumbled into like web stuff and then Flash games and Flash stuff, and then it became animation, and then I just started freelancing within that. And then I made money out of that, and I never did any money out of the small Flash games, so I didn't really knew how I could make a living out of it, basically. But I always wanted to try and like take the skills that I've acquired over the years and just see also like I was a little bit over 30, just got my second small kid, and thought like if I would do something like this, I should do it now. Even if I have small kids, I think like when I'm like 45, maybe I don't have the energy, so let's just go for it and try and see what happens. So yeah.
I was actually really into working with games when I was younger at first. I was like learning 3D on the side when I was young, and I managed to get an internship at a game studio in Stockholm when I was like 16, 17, something like that. But then it was kind of like a bad experience. Like it was a bigger studio, and it really felt like an industry, so to say. So I got kind of like turned off from the games. So I went more towards film and animation and stuff like that.